A lifetime of being the useless daughter, I unveiled my parents' perfect image and helped my sister reclaim herself. My sister, Maya, 47F, has always cast a shadow over me, 42F. We were brought up in a wealthy Boston suburb by parents, both in their late 70s, who were very focused on success and social standing. Even though we were both intellectually gifted, Maya was always presented as our family's jewel, while I was only an afterthought. This dynamic was evident from my very first recollections. Our parents would have lavish celebrations for Maya's birthdays, inviting the kids from the wealthiest families in their neighborhood. In contrast, my birthdays were frequently overlooked or commemorated with a hurried card explaining that we already spent too much on Maya's party this year. This trend persisted throughout our schooling. Our parents hosted an all-night celebration when Maya was accepted to a prestigious private high school. They simply remarked, "At least we won't have to pay for this one." When I was awarded a merit scholarship to an equally renowned institution 2 years later, every accomplishment I made was compared to Maya's and found wanting. The difference was much more noticeable while we were in college. Our parents covered all of Maya's living expenses and tuition at Yale Law School, as well as a nice apartment. Regarding my schooling, they advised me to take out loans or pursue a less costly job route because they had already committed their resources to Maya's law school fund. In spite of this, I obtained scholarships, worked several jobs, and earned an honors degree in computer science. When we started our careers, Maya took the route our parents had carefully mapped out for her, joining a prominent legal practice and moving up the corporate ladder as predicted. In the computer sector, I forged my own route by relying more on talent and perseverance than on family ties to launch my career. Family get-togethers were usually fraught with tension. Maya was referred to as our successful daughter by our parents, who would treat me as though I didn't exist. Our mother would hastily shift the topic or make disparaging remarks such, "Oh, she does something with computers," when family members inquired about my line of work. I was able to establish a decent job in spite of the ongoing, subtle, but persistent emotional assault. I managed a team of engineers and had a comfortable six-figure salary as a middle management at a burgeoning software business by the time I was in my early 40s. However, this was nothing compared to Maya's accomplishments as a lawyer in our parents' eyes. It all came to a climax during Maya's promotion party 3 years ago. Our parents kept reminding everyone that she was the youngest person ever to be appointed a senior partner at her firm. More than 200 members of Boston's affluent social circles were invited to the grand ballroom of the Fairmont Copley Plaza, which they had rented out. The intricate floral arrangements, the champagne towers, and the string quartet playing in the corner are just a few of the agonizing details I can still clearly recall from that night. In order to celebrate the accomplishment of their golden kid, our parents had gone all out. I felt like an alien at what should have been a family gathering, so I sat at my designated table, a little away from the main family table, and tried to act dignified. I anticipated the customary kudos for Maya when our father got up to speak, but what transpired was more than I could have ever dreamed. He opened by referring to Maya as their greatest blessing while addressing the full assembly of Boston's social and legal elite. I had long recognized that she was their golden child, so that part wasn't shocking. The room burst in amusement as he went on to joke that they should have stopped having children after Maya since the second ones are usually useless anyway. He said that they could have spent all of their time and money on Maya rather than wasting them on me. My mother said, "At least we had one child we could be proud of," as she stood next to him, grinning and nodding. Their words weren't even the worst part, it was observing the reactions of those in my immediate vicinity, who seemed to find my public humiliation amusing. I frantically glanced at Maya in the hopes that she would speak up or else demonstrate her sisterly support. However, she merely shot me a pitying look before joining in the uncomfortable giggles. "They're just joking," Maya remarked simply when I questioned her later in the hotel's powder room. "Perhaps they would be proud of you too if you put in as much effort as I did." Those remarks, given with such casual harshness, were the last straw. My relationship with my family ended that evening. I had put up with being the inferior daughter for years, but this public admission of my inadequacy was too much. I immediately removed them from all of my social media accounts, blocked their phone numbers, and erased their email addresses as soon as I came home. I got a job at another software business across town in less than a week, and I immediately started a new life. I gave my job and personal development all of my attention for the ensuing 3 years. I developed a solid team, received numerous promotions, and even began coaching more junior female IT workers. For the first time in my life, I felt genuinely valued for my abilities, and my new coworkers recognized my leadership style and skill set. My parents were worried about my absence from family events, I was told by distant relatives, but their worry was never followed by an apology. telling everyone that I was being oversensitive and dramatic. Maya seemed to defend their actions. She even implied that my emotional instability was evidence that our parents had been correct about me all along. Life continued, and my independence brought me serenity. I traveled widely, purchased a stunning brownstone in Back Bay, and formed sincere friendships with individuals who valued me for who I am. I found a sense of self-worth that was unrelated to comparisons to my sister, and the burden of continuously attempting to earn my parents' love subsided. My parents sent me several urgent texts yesterday after I hadn't heard from them in 3 years. The first few arrived via email, followed by voicemails on my work phone and, lastly, text messages from unfamiliar numbers. I felt something bad must have happened because they hadn't made an attempt to get in touch with me in months. I called them back after unblocking their number against my better judgment, my pulse pounding as I braced myself for any news they could have. Must I tell them what they told me? Their predicament is almost poetically ironic, and I'm thinking of a plan of action that might eventually let them see the repercussions of their actions. However, I want to be sure that my judgment isn't influenced by past traumas. I've been thinking about how life can take such unexpected turns while sitting in my home office for the past few hours and gazing out my window at the Boston skyline. For me, the last 3 years have been life-changing. My team now looks up to me instead of me being the constant letdown. I played a key role in helping us land a significant deal that recently made our business famous. In retrospect, I see how much their unrelenting criticism impacted every facet of my existence. I hopped from relationship to relationship in my 20s and 30s, constantly selecting individuals who would treat me the same way my parents did, as though I was never quite good enough. To comprehend the pattern and overcome it, years of therapy were required. Their disdain for my accomplishments even affected my job decisions. Whenever I was successful, I would minimize my achievements, almost as an act of contrition. I didn't even inform them when I got my first big promotion because I knew they would somehow compare it to Maya's career. Ironically, they never realized how strong it was to launch a profession without their help since they were too preoccupied with upholding their flawless image and Maya's flawless reputation. Every accomplishment I made was the result of my own perseverance and diligence. Maya provided financial support and connections, but I was left to fend for myself in the corporate world. I can't help but think about how my parents' fixation with social standing and perfection has finally come back to haunt them as I get ready to disclose what they told me. After all, the cosmos appears to have a sense of humor. I'm also struggling with the fact that, in spite of everything they've done, including years of emotional abuse and humiliation in front of others, a tiny part of me still cares about my family's well-being. Perhaps that makes me human, or perhaps it makes me weak. In any case, I am certain that the choice I make next will permanently alter everyone's life. Shall I share their words with you? What do I intend to do? I am aware that some people could argue that I should be the larger person and take the high road. But perhaps it's time for them to comprehend what it's like to lose everything they hold dear, including their reputation, social status, and ideal family image, after decades of being destroyed in that embarrassing speech 3 years ago. My office is now covered with deep shadows as the sun sets over the Charles River. I'm getting more and more frantic as my phone continues to beep with additional messages from my folks. My silence is probably making them nuts because they have never had to wait for anything in their lives. Excellent, I believe I'm prepared to discuss what they told me and my next steps. To be clear, though, this isn't about retaliation. It's time to hold them accountable for years of emotional abuse. This is about justice. Justice is at stake here, and they must be held responsible for years of emotional torture. Showing them that their useless second daughter is more powerful than they ever thought is the goal here. If you would want to hear the rest of this story, please let me know. It will be worth the wait, I assure you. First update. I spent the next few hours assembling the startling facts of Maya's predicament following that initial phone conversation with my parents. Not only was what they disclosed shocking, but it also completely destroyed the flawless image they had worked so hard to create over the years. My parents claim that Maya has been battling a serious cocaine addiction. 3 months ago, she lost her job at the law firm, but she was able to keep it a secret from our parents by acting as though she was still employed. Only after one of their country club friends noticed Maya in a troubling state outside a well-known drug house in a dilapidated area of Boston did they learn the truth. What is the most ironic aspect of this whole circumstance? It seems that Maya began using cocaine in order to continue performing well at work. In order to keep up with the rigorous schedule and high-pressure atmosphere, she sought chemical aid due to the burden of being the youngest senior partner and our parents' unending expectations. I could hear the shame seeping out of my mother's voice as she tearfully described how Maya had spent all of her money and their retirement fund to fuel her habit. What really surprised me, though, was that their reputation, rather than Maya's health or recuperation, remained their top priority. As if someone would overhear our phone talk, my mother muttered, "We can't let anyone at the club know about this. What would people think? We've already had to justify her absence from recent social gatherings." The portion that made my blood boil then came. As is his custom, my father looked for someone else to blame for his golden child's decline. "Back then, you didn't expose her to drugs, did you?" His voice was full of accusations as he asked. "You were always the one who rebelled." I became silent in shock. They were attempting to blame me for this, despite the fact that I hadn't spoken to them or Maya in 3 years. They didn't seem to care that I've never even done drugs. They believe that their useless daughter is somehow to blame for any issues with their ideal daughter. My mother promptly added their true motive for phoning. She begged, "Please come home and help us take care of her. People would find out if we sent her to rehab, so we can't. You might be able to take a few weeks off from work. After all, your work isn't nearly as significant as Maya's former work." It was verified that nothing had changed by that final remark, which was so nonchalantly harsh. They couldn't resist making fun of me, even in this circumstance. However, they later disclosed something that further fanned the ridiculousness of their request. Maya's former coworkers had already made 2 attempts at intervention, including offering to covertly set up private therapy at a covert facility in Switzerland. My dad clarified, "We can't risk anyone finding out. The reputation of our family would be ruined if it were known that Maya had entered a rehab facility. We would like to deal with this internally." With me serving as her full-time caregiver, their plan, if you can call it that, was to keep Maya confined to her old room at their home. Through sheer resolve and familial duty, they appeared to believe that their useless daughter might somehow overcome their perfect one's drug addiction. I'm still in shock over their foolishness. I find it ironic that after years of ignoring and disparaging me, they are now seeking for my assistance. Even more startling, though, is their readiness to jeopardize Maya's health, and maybe her life, in order to protect their reputation. We would like to deal with this internally. They had a plan, if you can call it that, to keep Maya confined to her old room at their house while I took care of her full-time. Through sheer resolve and familial responsibility, they appeared to believe that their useless daughter might somehow heal their perfect one's drug addiction. My mother genuinely sneered at my suggestion that addiction calls for expert medical help. "Stop being dramatic," she advised. "You've never been as strong as Maya. She will recover if her family provides her with some help. She is unique, she is not like other addicts." This was the direction of the conversation for nearly 2 hours. They took turns pointing the finger at me, downplaying how bad Maya's addiction was, and worrying about how to hide it from their friends. They never once showed sincere concern for Maya's welfare or admitted that their pressure may have contributed to her demise. My father made one last remark before hanging up the phone, which solidified my choice of what to do next. "Keep in mind that if you don't assist us with this, you're proving all we've ever said about you being of no use to this family," he continued. Without answering, I hung up, already making plans in my head. They wish to remain silent about this. Their reputation is a concern for them. Perhaps it's time for Boston's elite to meet the family they've long admired in person. I can't help but see the irony as I sit here figuring out what to do next. They need the daughter they cast aside to preserve the one they revere after spending years pulling me down to elevate Maya. However, I have another idea that will ultimately help them see the real consequences of their behavior. Shall I tell you my plan? Taking the high road isn't exactly what most people would think of doing, but perhaps it's not the best course of action this time around, given everything they've done. Watch this space to see what happens next. I can assure you that karma will soon make a stunning entrance in their meticulously planned life. Second update. I debated for a long time before deciding to contact Maya directly. Without our parents interfering, I wanted to hear her side of the tale. What transpired was painful and eye-opening. On the phone, Maya's voice was hardly recognizable, weak, uncertain, and entirely different from the self-assured sister I recalled. She initially spoke in short, disjointed words, as though it took a great deal of work to put her ideas together. The entire story then slowly came to light. She didn't fall into addiction all at once. It began soon after I was humiliated by our parents at the promotion party. The weight of our parents' expectations and the burden of being the youngest senior partner became too much to bear. She admitted, I was frantically trying to prove I deserved the position by working 90-hour weeks. I had trouble falling asleep. Every case seemed like it might be the one in which I failed, where I would demonstrate my lack of competence. Seeing how worn out she was, one of the other partners gave her something to keep her advantage. Cocaine was the something in question. What began as a one-time boost to get through challenging instances turned into a daily requirement. Maya explained how she would plan her entire day to keep up the ideal facade while controlling her increasing dependence. She would plan court dates for the mornings when she was most lucid, attend lunch meetings that were really occasions to use, and progressively distance herself from everyone who may observe her decline. The most startling admission, however, came when Maya sobbed and admitted that it was also a turning point in her life to witness our parents make fun of me at her celebration. She wailed. I saw myself becoming them. I was so focused on maintaining this image of perfection that I stood there and let them destroy you. I've carried that guilt ever since. She disclosed how the unrelenting adulation from our parents had turned into a prison. The bar was increased with each success. The pressure to be flawless increased with each achievement. They didn't just ruin your life, she said in a whisper. They ruined mine, too, just in a different way. The topic of discussion turned to her present circumstances. Her savings, her career, and her standing in the legal community are all gone. Our parents' resistance to allow her to get professional help, however, is what scares her the most. She said, they keep saying they can handle it privately. But I know I need real treatment. I'm scared I'll die if I don't get help soon. Then Maya did something that surprised me. She expressed regret, not just a shallow, I'm sorry, but a sincere admission of her responsibility for my suffering. She apologized for all the times she had taken sides with our parents, for all the times she had reveled in their admiration while they had denigrated me. In her own words, you were always the stronger one. You built your life despite them, while I built mine to please them. Look where that got me. Neither of us missed the irony in her comment. Maya shared more details about our parents' present conduct while we spoke. More focused on maintaining appearances than obtaining her assistance, they have been micromanaging her deterioration. They've created elaborate lies to explain my absence from social events, Maya stated. They've even staged fake video calls where I pretend to be working late at the office I no longer have access to. Finding out how they have been responding to her withdrawal attempts was the most upsetting aspect. They have seen it as a minor nuisance rather than seeking medical care. When I experience severe symptoms, they give me sleeping pills and lock me in my old bedroom, she stated. They tell the housekeeping staff I have a bad flu. I overheard them discussing what to tell the country club members, Maya remarked, laughing bitterly. They were more worried about maintaining their standing in the club than whether I might need emergency medical care. I had a clear image of Maya's addiction and the poisonous familial dynamic that fueled it by the end of our talk. Our parents hadn't produced one successful and one unsuccessful daughter. Though in separate ways, they had harmed us both. I want to get proper help, finally, Maya said. But I'm terrified of standing up to them. They've controlled every aspect of my life for so long. I don't know how to defy them. I understood exactly what I had to do at that point. I had to change my original revenge plot. Indeed, our parents should be held accountable for their deeds. However, I also have to make sure Maya receives the much-needed assistance. I'm developing a new plan that will safeguard Maya's road to healing while also exposing our parents' destructive behavior. Now is the moment to demonstrate to them that their useless daughter is capable of handling any problem, even if it means destroying their valuable social standing in the process. I will describe my plan and how I plan to implement it in the upcoming update. Let's assume that our parents are going to realize that keeping up appearances shouldn't be their top priority at this time. Third update. My strategy was executed with precision and method, focusing on our parents' most prized possession, their position in Boston's affluent circles. With the church community, Phase 1 got underway. I secretly forwarded documents to the Senior Leadership Council of their Episcopal Church, including proof of Maya's current state and a thorough letter detailing how our parents were deliberately delaying their daughter from obtaining life-saving medical care. I emphasized how they put appearances before their daughter's life by mentioning their refusal of the offer of the Swiss Rehabilitation Center. It happened just before the annual meeting of the church fundraising committee, which my mother had chaired for the previous 15 years. The council reacted quickly. In addition to removing her from the committee, they started a formal conversation regarding the Christian need to help family members in need. With several members of the church openly glancing at my parents' normal pew, which was noticeably empty, the Sunday sermon about pride coming before a fall was especially incisive. Phase 2 focused on their network of professional contacts. I methodically contacted important associates at Maya's previous legal practice, voicing my serious concerns regarding our parents' handling of the matter. The company immediately disassociated itself, already concerned about possible liabilities. Our parents' painstakingly constructed fiction about Maya continuing to work there was essentially destroyed when they released a formal statement stating that she had left months prior for personal reasons. The country club stage was especially fulfilling. All I had to do was make sure the appropriate individuals heard the appropriate conversations. Among the elite members of the club, gossip spread like wildfire. The absurdity of the situation was now being discussed in whispers by the same social circles that had laughed at my humiliation 3 years prior. My mother's valuable junior league connections provided the brilliant idea. The message was clear. Their place in Boston's social hierarchy was eroding. I made arrangements for their annual charity banquet, which was typically held at our parents' house, to be moved because of concerns about the home environment. I put the second phase of my plan into action as their meticulously planned social environment collapsed. I was able to get Maya a spot at a prestigious rehabilitation center in Arizona, away from Boston's prying eyes, by working with her old coworkers. It gave her the opportunity to heal free from the poisonous influence of our parents. The administrative director of the facility consented to list Maya under a false identity after learning about our parents meddling in earlier attempts at rehabilitation. This made sure our parents couldn't interfere with or control her therapy. Maya's path to recovery, from addiction and from our parents' oppressive expectations, began when she wrote me a quick note upon arriving at the facility. "Thank you for being strong enough to do what I couldn't." As I had expected, our parents' response to their social collapse was just that. They kept calling me, alternating between angry calls and frantic pleas. Father's last voicemail was quite instructive. "How dare you destroy everything we built? We gave you life, and this is how you repay us." I sent a single text message in response. "Consider this my repayment for your years of apt parenting. Your reputation is experiencing the same thing you did to my self-worth, systematic destruction. How does it feel to be seen as useless in your social circle?" Boston's affluent social circles are still feeling the effects. Our parents, who were once honored guests at all important social gatherings, are now discreetly denied invitations to important events. They get no response to their calls. They mysteriously lose their regular reservations for dinner at upscale eateries. Their new reality is the sidelong glances and whispers they have been trying so hard to escape. Maya's therapist at the rehab facility sent me an unexpected email last week. She revealed, with Maya's consent, that my sister is progressing remarkably. Now that she is finally getting professional assistance and is free from our parents' toxic expectations, she is starting to realize how their fixation on perfection fueled her addiction. In addition, the therapist made a comment that made me cry. It seems that Maya has a picture of us as kids on her bedside table. It was taken before our connection was ruined by our parents' expectations. She hopes to restore the sisterly connection we previously shared by looking at it every morning as inspiration for her recuperation. Unable to handle their embarrassment in Boston, our parents are said to have escaped to their Berkshire's vacation home. Things became worse after their last attempt at damage control, which involved sending a long email to their social circles saying they were misinterpreted. They were officially suspended from the country club after someone, not me, for once, leaked it to all of the members. One of my mother's oldest friends, who saw me humiliated at Maya's promotion celebration, wrote me a letter yesterday. She realized how the community had tolerated our parents' destructive behavior for years and expressed her sincere regret for not speaking out that evening. "Letting someone face the consequences of their actions is sometimes the most loving thing we can do," she wrote at the end of her letter, a quotation that encapsulated the situation well. Some may argue that my retaliation was excessively severe and that I ought to have approached the matter more tactfully. However, I disagree. Our parents' reputation was cultivated over decades of violence and emotional abuse. They maintained control and imposed their perverted ideal of perfection by using their social position as a weapon. They are now going through the agonizing reality of being viewed as a letdown by their peers, just as they did to me. Maya's recuperation is still going well. She's beginning to envision a future free from the controlling influence of our parents, one in which she defines success according to her own standards rather than using their distorted definition. Together, we are gradually mending the harm our parents caused to our relationship. For my part, I've at last discovered tranquility. It turned out that the useless daughter was the who could bring about both justice and salvation. I've demonstrated that the ability to stand up for what's right, even at great personal expense, is a better indicator of success than social standing or parental favor. At all costs, our parents sought to keep up appearances. They got what they wanted then. Everyone now recognizes them for who they truly are.